Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 336. And finally, we got the whole gang back again, plus one. So even though Corey, I don't know if maybe I should mention that. We'll let Corey mention that if he wants to. I don't think he's trying to hide anything. He's pretty open with all his illnesses and his, and his injuries and things. So, but I'll just say he's kind of a trooper to be here. So, all right. So first, let's just get this thing started off. You're on my channel, so you know where to find me on YouTube. And if you are on my YouTube channel, then you probably hopefully you've heard, because I've been talking about it. I've got a Kickstarter running right now. We launched it on Tuesday. In the first 24 hours, we did hit our initial goal, but that's not where we want to stop. We want to keep going. And recently, I just released a stretch goal, which is super cool, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we got some other stuff to talk about too. But you can look right down here at the very bottom of your screen, and you'll see that the Young and Dead Kickstarter is live. I made it super easy for you. You don't have to go to Kickstarter and search a bunch of weird stuff, and all you have to do is type in youngandthedead.com, and that'll take you right to my Kickstarter. So yeah, if you haven't already backed it, definitely go check it out. There's tons of cool rewards, also featuring special variant covers from each of the other three people on this show right now, plus two others. So you definitely want to check those out. And that's really all I'm going to talk about as far as promoting myself today is that. But do you want me to kind of pull up the Kickstarter and kind of show people real quick? Do you guys mind?
I would love for you to show us.
I haven't checked it recently, so I'm kind of curious on where it is.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so we kind of reached our initial goal. Wait, okay, I'm doing the wrong thing here. So, all right, so yeah, there's obviously a video if you're not familiar. So this is a cover done by Russ Leach. So each one of the guys on the show, plus two other artists, did variant covers for each of the issues. There's 5 issues available. This is Russ Leach's cover right here for number 5. Then Federica Marchetti did this cover. She's an awesome artist that I work with on some other projects. Did an awesome job. We'll get to some of these other guys' stuff in a minute. You kind of go through, you can see some of the interior art, black and white. It kind of goes back to that old black and white explosion indie comics. I'm a big fan of black and white comics. This is my standard cover, but we've also got the variant covers. You can see a little more of the artwork. But it's a kids versus zombie adventure story. It's in the vein of Goonies and Night of the Living Dead. So right here, if you like Goonies, you like Monster Squad, you like Gremlins, Stranger Things, Night of the Living Dead, then you'll love Young and the Dead. And this here is Gary's cover that Gary did for issue number 3. This is Corey's cover for issue number 2. And this is Josh's cover for issue number 1. So there are tiers where we'll get to it. You know, here's the different tiers. You can back at these 2 digital levels. If you just want PDFs, you get 1 or the whole set of the standard covers. Then you can get a physical copy of any issue you want, 1 through 5. Then this $30 tier, which is one of the more popular tiers, you get all the standard issues. Oh, also free shipping in the U.S. So you won't be surprised by any weird extra cost if you're shipping to the U.S. And for international backers, I have some specials for you. It's not free shipping, unfortunately. I can't do that, but I'm going to give you guys some extras that'll kind of hopefully soften the blow of that shipping you got for international. So for $40, here you get all the variant covers by my co-host here and plus 2 others. Just really amazing stuff. And I really wanted these to be all different, their own kind of thing. So we designed different logos for each one of them. It's not the same kind of format that kind of runs through. They each have their own kind of vibe and play to each artist's strength. Then we've got a special right here, and this has a remark. I'll show this when I click out of this full screen thing. But we've got at the $55 level, you can get a remark, which is, if you want original artwork, that's your best bet as far as, the cheapest you're going to get like original artwork from me. So that's me drawing one of these little zombie ice cream sketches on the cover. And then we get into this little zombie threat thing that at these other levels, you all get that. And then at 65, you can get all the standard issues, plus all the variant issues, plus a blank sketch cover, plus the PDFs and everything. At $100, if you we're getting to the higher tiers, but here's the thing. when I do original sketches, I don't charge less than $100 for those. And here, not only can you get an original sketch cover with a sketch done by me for $100, but you get the comics as well. So if you ever wanted original artwork from me, that's going to be probably the cheapest you're going to get. So, and then for $150, I mean, you get a lot. You get all the standard covers, physical issues, all the variant covers, the sketch cover, plus a blank sketch cover that you can sketch on yourself, plus the digital PDFs. And if you are a super fan, there's only one of these available because it actually contains the original artwork for the cover, and that one's at $500. So, you know, it's a little, you know, that's for the super fan, super collecting, only one of those. And you can add on if you are missing an issue or something, or you just want an extra one or something, or you want a bunch of sketch covers, just do cool sketches on. There's those, and you can add on the variant as well. And like I said, this for $30. If you're in the U.S., you want all these little extras and stuff. It's $3 if you're in the U.S. or international. These for free. So you're gonna have to pay $25 for shipping, but you get a $30 value in prints and stickers and stuff like that. And one of them is like a cool 3D print. Speaking of 3D prints, I blocked our first stretch goal, which is when we hit 3,500. The cover that Erika did, you get that in 3D. It's really cool. You know, I did all the 3D effects on it using her artwork, and it was really just cool. There's a lot of different levels. It goes super deep and everything, and it's a really cool print. So hopefully we'll hit that goal, and everyone that's backing at a physical level of $15 and up gets that, you know, 3D print with the 3D glasses. And then there's more stretch goals to be announced. It's all shipped in Gemini comic mailers, so it's going to be super protected. And like I said, if you are international backers, you get that $30 value free. I just throw that in for you guys. So that's the Kickstarter. Let me click out of here. There we go. And yeah, let me see. So can I go on? How do I get on me? There we go. So here you can kind of see that's what the remark looks like. So there's kind of an ice cream. You can see the ice cream truck. There's sort of an ice cream theme through it. So I'm doing these kind of ice cream pop zombies as part of that. And then, like I said, you can see I'm going to be doing some live streams. I just did this on a live stream. It's in the poly bag, but I'm doing all these 80s kind of zombie. So that's kind of what you get for your higher tiers. So that's the Kickstarter. So if you're interested, definitely check it out. Like I said, just go to youngandthedead.com. And that's the end of my pitch. So who do we want to move to next? I'm going to go clockwise. So Corey, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, so I'm doing a newsletter, and you guys can sign up for that at coreykerr.com/email. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm doing the comics, the Ye Olde Modernity, and I've restarted doing kind of video essays on my YouTube channel. So I got a few of those going on. So if you don't want to miss out on any of that stuff, then yeah, jump in and go to coreykerr.com/email to sign up. And you can see the the first 3 comics. They're all free. So you can see them at coreykerr.com/YOM for Ye Olde Modernity.
All right. Now we go to Josh. Josh, what's going on in your world? What do you got to promote?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely have to promote, let's see, the best cover, I'd say, of all the variant covers, easily. And there's no way any cover would ever take over this space. This. Oh, wait, not this one. This one.
Nice.
Yeah. Here,
yeah.
Let's go full screen.
I would say.
Oh, wait.
Oh.
Sorry. How do I go full screen on just you, Josh?
You'd rock this business. Hang on.
You do it.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
All right. So again, I feel like I need to also exit the solo layout at some point soon for a bit that I was setting up. But this is the best comic cover of all the variants. No one has any control over the fact that this is easily the best. I'll just say it again. You guys should back these variants while they're happening. I know we're going to pass it to Gary at some point. I know that he might have done a variant, but I'm just going to say these are easily.
What?
easily the best.
Yeah,
So
Gary, what do you think the best variant is?
I think the best way to answer that would be with a magic trick. A magic trick.
Magic trick?
oh,
Look at that right there.
what?
Don't worry, everyone. Don't worry.
Oh no, my
I will
face.
turn Josh back. Don't worry. Let's just savor this high comedy.
What is this witchcraft?
Okay, so I guess I'll just continue my pitch, but
Let's give everyone a chance to catch their breath because they're laughing so hard right now.
Okay, so
Anyway, let's change Josh back. I'll show mercy with my magic.
yeah, I think I'm just stuck, so I think I'll do my pitch like this.
Well, that's fine too. This is another
Yeah.
alternative. If you find the greatest variant cover available, somehow it's not landing with you, you're not responding to it, this is another option right here. This more kind of urban, gritty GTA, like maybe.
Just ignore this. Ignore my face right now, you guys. Ignore it. This is not the best of the variants, but I will say, in all seriousness, okay, that bit went for a long time, but honestly, I will say I am really stoked about Scott funding, and I will say everybody's. Ooh, there's a beautiful variant up there too, by Corey.
I'm a proud $40 backer. I wanted all the variants.
Yeah, and I did the same thing because I'm like, I felt like when I saw everyone's variants, I felt like mine was the weakest, and and I don't feel like I did a bad job on mine. That's just how good the variety of variants are. Like Russ's cover, Gary, Corey, like everybody just rocked on that, and you guys should get a hold of that before it runs out. And then of course the last thing I would hawk. I'm hoping I'm pulling up the right little magic trick here. Okay, Jacob's Apartment. Make sure you guys pre-order that, or not pre-order it. Go to your local library or bookstore and ask that they carry that. You guys have heard the pitch long enough. If we're going to pitch anything today, it should be this. And Gary.
And maybe that. And
all right, so I'll pass it to Gary. But yeah.
Okay,
Gary, where can everybody find your stuff?
They can find me at Instagram, on Instagram with this handle right here, Dinosaurs vs Marsbots. You can find me on YouTube just under my name, Gary Hodges. I do a weekly live streams late Saturday mornings as I chip away on the third comic in the D vs. M series, which is all available now. The first two are available now. D vs. M 1975, Men in Black. D vs. M 1997, A Hapless Eyewitness, Wrong Place, Wrong Time. It's the highly classified, totally true stories of a top secret war that took place between the 70s and the early 2000s, involving aliens and the US government, and yes, dinosaurs. You should check it out. It's an anthology series. You can start any place in the series. It'll make sense. You can hop around. Very character focused, mature readers only, but also has a fair helping of kind of B-movie fun with aliens and carnage and stuff like that. So on my Etsy shop, you can find the link at my Instagram or on my YouTube channel. Working on the third part right now, making good progress, page a week. Look for it early next year. So,
and then I will second Gary's live streams are super fun. I try to make it to every single one that I can. It's awesome. They're entertaining. They're fun. So yeah, make sure you guys are following Gary.
Yeah. Thank you. And ignore, I see Squatch in the comments. Just totally ignore him. He's very concerned about the fact that I'm not, as far as he's concerned, I'm not working enough, but I'm always working. Hence the title of the live streams, Always Working Squatch. So don't listen to him. Don't worry about anything he has to say. And then finally, you can support me by finally you can support me indirectly by backing Scott's Kickstarter and throwing some money his way and pick up a variant cover or 2 or 3 or 5.
Hold on 1 second. I'm just commenting here. Feel free to keep it going. Okay, I got it. Okay. Right. So anyway, we're talking about all the awesome content and everything that we each of us are on YouTube. Each of us are putting stuff out there. Corey's got his newsletter that he's doing. Josh is doing vlogs plus live streams. Gary's doing updates every single weekend. I've got a ton of videos on my channel, talking about, art and making money at art and all that stuff. So we put out all this content, and then, sometimes it's
there's Corey and his OnlyFans. There's,
but we're putting out all this content, and we're kind of like some, it's kind of like, I guess, to what end? Like, why are we doing all this stuff? Because honestly, I don't think, are you I'm not. Are you, any of you guys getting rich off this content that you're putting out on YouTube?
No.
I think I've added up all of the YouTube revenue, and it would buy a kind of expensive sandwich.
Right. And that is expensive sandwich, when you consider the amount of time and everything you've put into YouTube, what would you, if you were to factor that into, obviously you wouldn't be making as much as you would make it at a fancy place like McDonald's, but what percentage of, what are you thinking? Like pennies on, I don't know, a penny per hour?
I checked earlier. I have close to 650 videos that I've produced, and every one of those has taken me minimum an hour, if not 4 or 5. So, given that I've made a total of less than $50, I don't even know if pennies hits it.
Yeah, probably not. Probably, we get into hate pennies or whatever.
Yeah.
So why do we do this? Why are we? And there's a lot. I think that there's a lot of people on YouTube. Sometimes you click on channels and it's and this is fine too, because I think when I started doing YouTube, a lot of it was kind of about me. It was like, I'm doing the 100 Days of Making Comics challenge. This is my comic. This is what I'm doing, and kind of sharing, kind of vlogging. And I know we've all done stuff like that, but we also do other stuff too. And it's kind of, and sometimes you click on things, it's like right before they even say a word, it's like and subscribe and do all this stuff. I don't do a lot of that, like and subscribe. It's, I think basically, I think a lot of the content that we're doing isn't just based around us so much. It's based around sharing the stuff that we know for other people to learn and stuff like that. So why do we do that? Because all of us are at the age that we didn't have YouTube growing up. It was a little harder to figure some of the stuff out. It's kind of leading into one of the main reasons why I do this stuff is because it was difficult for to learn certain things. We didn't have all this information at our fingertips, and people weren't as readily available to share their knowledge. A lot of times they were like trade secrets, and now you don't, that I learned this, but you don't get to learn that. You can learn it the hard way too. So I'm just kind of leading with this, the overall question is why do we do this?
I have a prediction, Scott. You ready for this prediction?
Sure.
You're going to come off looking really magnanimous, and I'm going to come off looking really selfish in this whole conversation.
How is that for a person who makes their living off of sharing knowledge and teaching people?
Yeah, people are paying me to teach them, but that's not why I put stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know where he's going with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Gary. Where do you think I'm going with it?
I think you would have, just tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I've misread you. Tell me if I'm being unfair or unkind, which I'm not trying to be unfair.
Right. No.
You're a very intellectual person. You're a very academic person. I think it would be impossible for you not to lay out the basic principles of reciprocity here. That, there is something you get out of giving, that there is something, that there's an exchange taking place here, overt or not. I think, I would just feel like that's something that you would bring up. But if you're going, I totally agree with that. If you're going more philosophical, then definitely, the whole law of the harvest, reciprocity, karma situation, that's been a theme in my life. I do much better when I'm putting stuff out there because I get a lot out of that. But I guess what I was saying is, Scott, you're saying
all of this great stuff. Like, you know, I want people to have it better than I did, which I agree. I think that's awesome. And I think you're doing that very well. I think my tutorial videos I do because probably for some of the same reasons that you've done some of your tutorial videos, Scott. I don't want people to ask me that question 57 times.
Well,
So,
okay.
like,
First of
I
all, how does that work out for you, Corey? Because in my experiences, you could put every single thing you know out there, and people are going to still. Not everyone
yeah.
sees every bit of your content, so you're never going to get to the point. No matter how much you repeat, because I've repeated.
Scott, wait, I disagree. I'm sorry. I have to cut you off and
Okay.
disagree. And then just after disagreeing, I have to ask you, like, what are the tools you use as art supplies? I'm just kind of curious.
What pen is that?
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So,
No, here's something that is kind of funny. I think it's different digitally because you've got a bigger following than I do digitally. In class, after about 2 weeks, I have students ask questions like this now. They say, Professor, I looked through your videos and I couldn't find a video on this. I'm not sure if I missed it, but, and then they'll ask a question. So I've trained them within the first couple of weeks of the semester. Oh, I've actually got a video on that. Oh, I've actually got a video on that. Oh, I've actually got a video on that. So I've trained them that, you know, like I've taught this class now for like 8 years in a row, you know, like 2 or 3 times a semester, 3 times a year. So like literally thousands of students have gone through the same curriculum. And so if I have a question more than 3 times, I make a tutorial just because I'm really impatient. So that's one of it. It also is nice that there's some kind of benefit out there. The other thing is, before I got involved with Artcasters and 48-hour art check and the 100s and all that, I was a kind of a lone man in the wilderness over here with no art buddies, and like, so this type of thing for me is a huge social and creative outlet, because I have lots of friends. I have very few friends locally that do art or illustration or understand the things that we talk about, you know. And so those are the 2 reasons why I produce so much content. I think the third is probably also pretty selfish. Showing my process is a really easy way to produce content that proves that I have expertise in an area where people pay me really well. So if I'm talking about YouTube revenue, I've made very, very little. If I'm talking about client work that I've gotten, just in the last couple of years, about 30% of my income has been from people who have seen me do stuff online and ask me to do that stuff. We've never met, you know. And so like the animated music video, that was really good. There's a lot of that type of stuff where just showing up and teaching things, a lot of people don't learn from that. They just see you as an expert. They're like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's actually teaching other people what he's talking about. And so, you know, I've only been animating for a couple of years, but because I do tutorials and behind the scenes stuff, and I show how I'm doing things, and I've got all this stuff, then when people need an animation and somehow they've come across me, or they've come across somebody that has come across me, because I'll get referrals from people on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and they'll say, hey, I actually know a guy that does that, and stuff like that. And so those are my 3 really selfish reasons for doing all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if that's so selfish. I mean, obviously, I mean, I'm not. It's like what I'm doing. I'll pull up Galen's comment in a minute because it's going to lead into this. But you know, it is you do have. I mean, there are times where I'm asking for things, but you got to give way more than you ask. You got to give to the point where it's okay to ask. I mean, I just did a whole 10 minutes pitching my new Kickstarter, but I don't do that. But if you look at the amount of work of content that I put out there, I mean, the stuff where I'm actually asking for something in return, it's probably maybe 5%. You know, I've got probably 10,000 hours. So, and this kind of also, so I'll pull up Galen's comment. Guys, the real question is, how do I get as good as you guys without having to put in any work? Give me the art hacks. And I do have art hack videos. But so, and this kind of goes in with the I guess I was going to say the latest video Josh put up, but he just put up another one.
Yeah,
but
I was thinking about that too.
Yeah. So just about you've got to put in time, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing with these videos. I mean, it's an investment. It's a lot of time that you're putting in, and if you do it long enough, then you can get to the point where people, either like what Corey's saying, where you become an expert. People see that. I've gotten jobs where people have had me, or projects where people have had me do tutorials based on, like not like for DIY.org or whatever, because they see, they'll watch something like 100, or, like a Making Comics 101, which I did, not, it just, it's like I keep saying, well, Galen's kind of catching up to me, but I still think mine's probably the most comprehensive course you're going to find on YouTube. And up until Galen started doing something, no one else was really doing that. That's why I started it. So, but now you've got more resources, because it seemed like I would watch people do content, and there's like, so you can look at somebody's channel like what's his name, Mark Crilly. You guys familiar with Mark Crilly? He's got millions of subscribers, but he's got tons and tons of pretty much everything that I've talked about. He's probably talked about at some point, but there wasn't any kind of format. It's just kind of all over the place. You've really got to search. So I'm like, I want to put out everything I know, but I want to put it in an order that people can follow, like step by step by step. And that didn't exist. I've seen people start it. They'll start like, oh, I'm going to do this whole thing where I go step by step, and then they get 4 videos, and then they vanish. So I'll do something like a whole 100 days. Or I keep saying 100 because they both got kind of 100 in the title. Making Comics 101. So I do that series, and then and I'm not making any money off of that, especially when you can. And that one I did a lot of heavy production on it, a lot of cutaways, a lot of B-roll, a lot of stuff like that. So when I'm, you could look at it like, oh man, I put so much time, and it's in the beginning. It's starting to get more views now, but at the time it wasn't getting a whole lot of views. And I'm like, oh man, is this, sometimes you think, is this all worth it? But, I think if you put in the time, you can set yourself up as an expert, and then stuff will happen. Like I get jobs where I'm creating tutorials for other things and stuff like that. So.
I agree. I think if you put in the time, you definitely have done the crime. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is a really good. Now that I'm seeing Galen's comment here, knowledge gatekeeping. Really early on, I did a rant about this, talking about one of the unknown things that caused the French Revolution is the encyclopedia was written, and so prior to that. It's one of the factors. Obviously, you've got Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, and then you've got the uprising and the middle class kind of growing, and the merchant class coming out with the people. But one of the things was the democratization of knowledge. And so prior to the encyclopedia, there were guilds that tightly held knowledge. And that there's something about that rubs me the wrong way. I hate secrets and gatekeeping, and people deciding who's worthy of certain skills or whatever. But yeah, so I think that's another reason is that I just thought of another one. I'm getting old, and I don't remember things as well as I used to, and so sometimes when I learn something, I'll make a video on it just so that I can go back and remind myself how to do it later. Because it's one of those things. It's like, oh, this is really cool for this illustration or this animation or whatever, and then, but I might need that twice a year. It's not like something that I'm going to do often enough to remember it, and so I will go watch some of my own videos to remind myself like how to do the thing that I learned 6 months ago or whatever. So that's pretty helpful as well.
I've done that too. I've got a video I did on how to do the perspective grids in Clip Studio, and I always have to go back to my video like, how did I do that again? So yeah, that's a good. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Yeah. What about you, Gary? Gary, we kind of in the beginning, you weren't doing a whole lot of content unless you're kind of promoting the book, but I think we kind of got you on board to start putting out more videos and more content.
Regular content. You did. Yeah. So there was definitely a shift. I think, and I'll probably pivot back to what I was doing originally once I'm done, once I'm out of drawing mode. The weekly live streams are pretty convenient when I'm in drawing mode because it's minimal effort. When I'm not in drawing mode, I tended to do more edited, kind of finished topic-oriented videos. So I'd come up with something I wanted to talk about, came up with whether it was a stage in the comic creation process or a topic within making comics or whatever. And I would do a little bit of writing and a little bit of editing and try to make something, you know, a little more crafted. And you can see those if you go to my channel and you go back, there's an obvious difference between the Always Working Squatch live stream ones and the ones that are a little more designed. But I feel like it's all, to me, the same. The same sort of intent. Whether it's the crafted ones or the live stream ones, I think I've been interested in less so process stuff and how-to stuff and technical stuff, but more, for lack of a better term, just the lifestyle of being a creative.
Yeah.
Talking more generally about this is what goes into it, and this is how I approach it, and this is how I think about it, and this is what's motivating me. You know, I think it's more like the human side of it rather than I've never, and this is a personal thing. This isn't a judgment on anybody. This isn't a critique of anybody at all. But like, I don't want to do a video on like, this is how I set up my tablet, and this is the software I use, and this is like, it's just not interesting to me. And one of my biggest strengths or weaknesses, depending on how you want to look at it, is like, I can't be bothered to do stuff I'm not passionate about. And I just am not passionate about it. I can't believe anybody cares what pen I use, and I'm not going to bother telling them. But I think it might be useful to somebody to talk a little bit about, you know, like, this is how I approach it. This is how I think of the problem. This is how I tackle the project of a comic from step A to step Z. And that's what I tried to do with the videos. What I also got more and more interested in, I think probably in the past 10 or 15 years, was, in whatever modest way I could, mentoring younger or less experienced artists or creatives. And I can't tell you exactly why that's satisfying to me or gratifying to me, but it is. And I was thinking about it when knowing I was going to do this show tonight, when I was driving home today from work, I was thinking about trying to crystallize, like, what is it that I'm after? And I think it's, you know, the working as a creative, whatever it is, whether you want to be a musician or a sculptor or a painter or a comic person or illustrator, graphic designer, a font wonk, whatever your thing is, it's not for everybody. But if you're not going to do it, I hope you're not doing it for the right reasons. And my concern is, having gone through this path, being where I am now, there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstandings out there about the lifestyle of, you know, someone who's decided to pursue a career in the arts, or someone who wants to make a comic, or someone who wants to do whatever. And if it's useful to people, if it's helpful to people, and I hope it is, like, I try to dispel some of that stuff anytime I can. And the two big categories that I think I try to concentrate on, like, I've done a lot of presenting to high school kids and college kids that are in different art classes. Once in a while I get invited to present, usually in the context of, I have this weird job, my day job, and it's showing an example of how you can find work as an illustrator in a job that you probably didn't know exist, in the kind of field you probably didn't know would need an artist.
Yeah.
And just to show possibilities, and just
showing kids like what a murder scene, how to draw a murder scene, and
exactly showing like what a stabbing looks like.
Yeah.
Do you when you do that, do you dress as Daniel Radcliffe?
I try. Yeah. No, I think, you know, so just for anyone who's unfamiliar with me, my day job, I'm a full-time illustrator. And the simplest way to describe my job is I create visual aids for use in criminal trials. So if you need a drawing of a crime scene, or anatomical drawings, or diagrams of how a breathalyzer works or whatever, like how to calculate DNA odds. Anytime you need a visual aid, like that might be something I would make. Okay. That's just graphic design. That's just illustration. It's just instructional, visual design. It's something that a lot of different people could do, but most people don't even know the job exists. And I think it's important to show, especially like 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids who are interested in the arts and, what kinds of crazy options are out there, things that they've never even considered. Not to say like you want my job, but to show that there's jobs you haven't even thought of, jobs you don't even know about. And we talked about this a little bit before. We've found our little tribes and we've kind of banded up and we spend a lot of our social time talking to each other and hanging out with each other, whether virtually or in person. And I think when you do that, it's easy to take for granted that most people, if they're a creative, especially if you're 15, 16, 17, you might be the only creative person you know.
Yeah.
Or maybe one other person.
There's usually like two other ones, and it's kind of like, oh man, these guys are
right.
better than me.
It's a weird thing. And especially if you're in like a normal day job, the odds there's someone else there who's like really into photography or really into dressmaking or really into playing an instrument or drawing or whatever the thing is, it's slim. It's very, very slim. And as a result, a lot of the information you're getting, like if you're interested, it's like, I really love this thing, whatever my creative thing is. I want to do this for a living. Mm-hmm. Most of the information you're going to get about it are from people who are not that. Right, and in my experience is probably very negative. Like if you go to your parents when you're 15 or 16 and one's an accountant and the other one works in a doctor's office, and you say, I think I want to be an artist. I think I want to be a filmmaker. I think I want to be in a band. I guarantee you, if not the first response, the second is probably going to be discouragement. Like there's somewhere in the first few things they're going to say to you, it's going to be something like, well, it's really hard. I don't know. You might want to do something else to have a backup. Like there's all that kind of, they'll react as if you had just told them, like, I want to play in the NBA. I want to be a movie star. Like they're going to act like it's that unrealistic. And I think what I try to impress upon kids is it's not. Like this is very doable. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but my argument is nothing is. Like no job is. Like working at McDonald's isn't easy. Working on the side of the road doing construction isn't easy. Working in a cubicle isn't easy. To paraphrase something that Corey said in his most recent video, and I'll do the vulgarity that he left out, like pick the flavor of shit sandwich you're willing to eat. It's if you're going to have to work, you should at least do something that you're getting something out of it. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about something that is worth that effort, worth that time, worth that blood, sweat, and tears. And if you think it's art, then you should chase it. There's lots of options out there. That's one thing I try to project in my videos. The other thing, and that's what I'm doing now with the live streaming, is in my experience, the biggest tip you can get, it's not what pen you're using. It's not how to set up your tablet. It's not what software. It's what Josh was actually talking about. It's basically like it's butt in chair, man. It's the biggest predictor of whether you're going to be able to make it work or not is how much laziness is a factor for you.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, Squatch gives me a hard time. Is like, I'm not seeing a lot of working and they always working. But the point of it really is every week I'm starting a new page. And who's making me do it? Nobody. Me. I have to keep myself on task. I have to show up. I have to cancel plans. I have to tell people no. I have to say I'm busy. I have to show up every week and do it. No one's going to blame me if I don't. No one's making me do it. No one's holding a gun to my head.
I know one person.
That's how you do it.
I know one person that would.
Yeah, there is one. Like, this is how it gets done. It's kind of like what Josh was talking about in his video today. It's not a trick. There's no sexy, magic combination of skills. There's no class you need to take. There's no book you need to read. You just need to be willing to suffer. And I don't mean suffer in like the cliche artist way. I'm not saying you need parents who beat you and you need a heroin addiction. That's not what I'm saying.
Crap, I gotta go get a refund on that one.
Yeah, don't sell the heroin back. When I
Okay.
say you need to be willing to suffer, I mean in the same way that someone who's training for a marathon has to be willing to suffer. Someone who wants to get into bodybuilding is willing to suffer. Someone who wants to learn a language is willing to suffer. All I mean is you need to be willing to be uncomfortable for the big picture. That's what it takes. And that's what I try to show, like with the weekly thing. It's like, here I am again on Saturday morning. Other people are out goofing off, watching movies, going to the mall, going whatever they're doing. And here I am drinking my coffee, getting ready to draw another page.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to.
Oh,
Do you want me to go, Josh, or you want to go?
I got one, but
Yeah,
but
go
you
ahead,
can
because
go
I was going to go back to something Gary said earlier. So if you got something,
Okay.
go ahead.
So just on that topic, for me, like the thing that I've found really encouraging in like the giving art kind of way, it kind of all started with Big Illustration Party Time when I met Kevin Cross at like a zine convention. At that point, we were like 2 or 3 years into professional illustration and like making it work. And we were like, it's so weird. Like no one talks about how to get clients. Nobody talks about contracts. Like no one was talking about these things publicly. And we were like, it'd be fun to hang out. And if we end up hanging out, we'll be talking about this stuff anyway. And maybe there's other illustrators out there working from home or people trying to figure this thing out working from home. We were like, wow, how do I bill clients? Like, how do I how do I do this whole thing? So we started kind of sharing that information and it became very quickly very addictive. And then my experience beyond that was like, so seeing a community of people, even at that time, like people reaching out to us who like work for Disney and work for like these huge companies. And we're just like these two kind of scrappy freelance illustrators that would just get these emails like, thanks, man, you got me through the week, or like you encouraged me to start a comic project, or and realizing you can kind of ignite that fire in people and inspire them. And then as a teacher, it's like the same thing would kind of draw me to teaching, where you'd see this artist that had potential, and often you'd be able to give them like a few little pointers that would kind of help facilitate them becoming better than you ever could be. And so like, I think there's something addictive about that, because there were people who did that for me when I first came out of college. Like, my friend Rick Reese was like the reason I first got any professional art. And he told me how to like write a contract and like bill clients and stuff like that, and shared information and kind of encouraged me and pushed me to kind of get into it. And, yeah, I'm kind of, my point is I'm kind of with you on that, Gary, where I feel like there's this mystification of like making a living as an artist. And I love demystifying that for people who want to do it.
Yeah.
But there's another side of me that like, very much relates to what you're saying too, Gary, where it's like, and I did that video about it, which is like, I feel like there's that demystification of that process where it's like a lot of people want to make great art and don't realize that a lot of the trick is just sitting down and putting in the time. And a lot of people are just spending hours like Googling cheats online, like, where they're like, oh, what's the, like, I need to get a better pen. I need to get a better whatever. Like, and it's almost like this, like, I need to buy the costume that I can put on that's going to let me be an artist, the artist's costume. And it's like, no, you just need to do the work. But I love being the person who can hopefully inspire that or, make that happen. And as an art director, I get the same. There's a lot of horrible things about being an art director. But one of the best things is when you have like a junior designer that you kind of pour into and you see them like evolve from like a junior asking questions kind of in that like sponge stage where you're trying to kind of figure things out, and seeing them excel and potentially like go on to become an art director themselves somewhere. And like there's something really fulfilling about that. And I think it's partially just like a return of the favor that was given to all of us, I think, in order, because it is a weird mystical industry and we all had somebody come alongside us. I don't know, Scott. Anyhow, I feel like I dominated too much of the time, but I was inspired by Gary on that one.
No, you kind of touched on something that I wanted to loop back around, and that's when Gary's talking about how he does the assemblies and stuff, and he talks to kids about, and basically opening up people's eyes, especially people that are interested, not just parents or naysayers and stuff like that. But potential artists who may not, because a lot of times it's just like they don't realize the different areas that you can pursue art in. It's just like, oh, I want to work for Disney, and then if I can't do that, there's nothing else. When in fact, everywhere you look is artwork. Everything has to be created. If you're trying to put together an IKEA furniture, somebody has to design the instructions. If you're, a lot of people aren't thinking, oh, if you're in a courtroom, you've got to get the point across. Somebody has to design those visual aids that people can see. Somebody has to design all the packaging for anything you buy. Anything that's a physical item, somebody has to design what that thing looks like.
Yeah.
Industrial design. There's so many
venue you've ever looked at. I mean,
exactly. So how can you say that there's no work for artists? I think people are limiting their mindset of what art actually is and what they can do, because the art is everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. Some people, maybe certain things aren't as glamorous as what they might think, but it beats digging a ditch. And I think you'll have a lot more, you enjoy your life a lot better if you're actually, have some creativity to it. And that's not, I mean, that's the one thing that bothers me, when people just kind of think that there's not enough jobs for artists, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth.
Dude,
people just don't think hard enough about, and
I think it's cultural.
Yeah.
I think it's cultural, because there's this like myth of like the starving artist, and it's one of the most infuriating things in the world. However, it's funny because I feel like people keep going way too extreme on the other end, where they'll be like, oh, there are no starving artists. And it's like, and then that becomes the person who doesn't want to put in the work on the art stuff. And it's like, no, you should, like, literally, you should suffer for your art. Like,
I don't agree
I'm not
with that,
kidding.
but...
If you're not suffering for, but should you make a living doing art? Hell yeah. Should you work like substandard wages doing some crappy job, or should you be being paid to draw? If you have drawing abilities, you should be drawing for a living. And like I used to tell students this too, where it's like, if they'd be like, well, where do you look and stuff like that? And I was told this in school, but it's like, go to a grocery store, walk down the aisle, and look at every single product that has art on it. Like, it does, like, what has graphic design on it? Like, are there like cartoon characters on items? Like, that's the variety of just stuff in like food industry. Okay, open up a biology textbook, right? Okay, oh wow, biomedical illustrations everywhere. Like, now it's like, go on a website. There's like a million different uses of illustration just scattered all throughout our world, because we're visual people,
At your local coffee shop, there's probably a cork board where everyone's pinned up their business cards and stuff like that. Look at all of those. I mean, you just need to start to notice it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would. Oh, sorry, Gary. Go
ahead.
I was going to say, and it's not just, a lot of people, especially that follow what we're doing, they either are or want to be comic book artists. And even in comic book art, I think a lot of times people limit their potential, or limit what they can create comics for. It's like, oh, it's like Marvel or DC or bust, or even smaller companies or whatever. That's all they're looking at. When in fact, I've made a pretty good living doing comics, and I've never worked for Marvel or DC. I do, and it's not as glamorous, but I'll do like like either PSA comics, or like comics for, like, similar to what Gary does, where he's trying to get information across visually to people who could use visual aids and things like that. But you can do that in comics form. I do a lot of that, and I can guarantee you that when I do that stuff, again, not as glamorous, and it's not all money, tell you that I make more money than a DC artist kind of work. And I find a way, for me personally, to make, if I'm doing a comic about cybersecurity, to make that fun and interesting, and the best comic about it. So it's not boring. I'm getting something where I'm creating my own superheroes to kind of get the point across, or whatever the case is. And so I mean, don't limit yourself, even in certain areas. I mean, think about, Eisner, I think it was Will Eisner, or maybe it was. I mean, there's a lot of people a lot of comic book artists that did artwork on, like military equipment and how that stuff operates and stuff like that. And I mean, just think of anything that you're trying to get the point across, and some of this has to be spearheaded by you. I mean, you might not think about, comics would be the best way to get this point across. If somebody needs, we need to teach somebody, well, why not use it as a comic? So it's that as a comic book artist, that's when you step in and say, this would be great as a comic. We can do a comic of this. And then all of a sudden you're making comics and you're getting paid for them, hopefully.
I think the first real paid art gig I ever did was actually with my first job out of college, where I was working in a design lab, like an orthotic lab. It didn't have anything to do with art, but they needed to do a employee manual and they wanted illustrations. And because I could draw, I was, hey, rather than hire somebody, I could probably do all the illustrations for you. And and there's all right, well, and I'm on the clock and I'm illustrating this manual. There you go. And so I've advocated, and this is straying a little bit from the original topic, but to show, I think it's just a way to share my experience with younger people who they might be able to use that to shake something loose and get somewhere. But I always treated my art ability early on as just a value add wherever I was working.
Yeah,
I treated it like touch typing or being able to speak Spanish or anything else. I just said hey, I can draw. And I have some basic graphic design and illustration skill. If you ever need a manual or a memo or a new business logo or something like that, or a new icon for the website, I can do that for you. And they will do that. They will do, rather than pay someone outside to come in and make a widget for their website, they'll just let Gary draw it. And there you go. You're off to the races. Now you're a working artist. And you do enough of that and you get your portfolio together. And now you can look for that career. But that's the stuff that no one ever explained to me. No one ever, I had to learn this slowly through trial and error and just dumb luck.
Yeah.
Over probably the first 15 years of my career before I finally transitioned to an actual creative path. And while I think I benefited from that in some ways, I consider it sort of my time in the desert where I just did cubicle life, white collar cubicle life, and kind of saw what that was all about. It was really, I didn't need all of that. In retrospect, I could have transitioned to creative fields much, much earlier in my career. And I think, if some kid or someone who's not even a kid, someone who just wants to do the same thing I did and reboot their career, can get something out of my experience, then it's worth sharing. It doesn't cost me anything to share it. And it feels good if even one person was oh, that was a really good tip and that helped me, great, that's all the compensation I need. Everyone should benefit from everyone else's experience, and that kind of goes back to the gatekeeping thing. Some people are like that about their technique, what pens are you using or how are you getting that brush stroke effect. To me, it's just how I actually got from A to B. It's just this is how I started networking, this is how I started figuring out what I could offer. This was the easiest place to start, and do what you will with this information.
So
I've got okay. I've got a similar story that when some of the first freelance work that I got when I was in high school, I was working at a grocery store. I was working at Fry's grocery store. Gary knows what that is since he's in Arizona, or Kroger, wherever you are. But anyway,
Not
so I was
Alpha
working at not Alpha Beta. Yeah, Alpha Beta was a little before that. But
not Lucky's, still the low price.
Yeah, I remember Lucky's too. We could go through all those TGNY, all that stuff. That wasn't a grocery store; it was a 5 and dime. But anyway, so I was working.
Is that the one across from Mervin's? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. We're just gonna name all the stores that are known.
So I can go old school. I can go FedMart. Don't.
Wow. You remember? Okay, you remember Skaggs? How about
Skaggs?
Yeah, you remember Yellow Front?
Okay, you remember Yellow Front? Yeah. All right. So anyway, I was working at the grocery store, and you got to put prices and signs and stuff. So at one point, somebody said, hey, can you go put up some signs, on for these products or whatever? So I'm like, okay, they give me some. I go over, I pick out the poster board and the markers, and I'm drawing whatever the product is. I'm drawing the logos and stuff on them, and I'm putting them up there, and they're like, oh, these are great. And then for long, anytime they needed to do that, they would have me do it. So I'd go over, I'd sit at the table by wherever the thing is, and while these other people are bagging groceries and getting carts out of there, I'm drawing all these logos, and
Right.
they loved it. And then it got to the point where I started doing them for like the chips and stuff like that. And then they've got the Frito-Lay guys that come in and they stock their own product and everything, and they're looking at it like, oh man, this is awesome. And then so some representative from Frito-Lay came by and, hey, can you do this to us? So I started doing Frito-Lay, and before you know it, they're having me come out to stores and design these giant displays. This was when Sun Chips came out. That's how long ago this was. And I designed this. I cut out this paper sun, and they brought in this giant boat, and we had this hand glider, this Sun Chip character that I designed, hand gliding, and then of course they're just the big thing with all the chips around it. And they had me doing this kind of stuff, and it's just all because I'm like, okay, what, you want me to do some sign instead of just drawing these little signs? I'm gonna make them look cool and everything. And so you gotta kind of look for those opportunities.
Yeah. No, I'd never heard that story before, and that's a really good example. And it's a pretty crazy score. Like that's pretty cool. But,
Yeah.
I think like I have a way to bring this to the topic. The topic.
Yeah, sorry, we got a little off track.
No.
I
have a bridge.
Stuff, I think. So.
I have a bridge. I think I
awesome.
can build. So all of this talk is reminding me of a really like fundamental moment in my young artist life, and this is when I was like, and it's funny. I don't know if I've talked about this one on stream before, but when I was in like 8th grade. My dad had all these odd jobs after being a graphic designer. He was like managing a hobby store. He was doing all this stuff because the whole industry had shifted. He took a gig at like a print company. Industry changed to computer stuff. So when he went back from an executive position there, and he had taken like a 3 or 4 year break from graphic design, the whole industry had shifted. And he was like, I'm not going back to school. So he took all these weird jobs. And then he ended up being a high school teacher for a while. And he was teaching at this high school. And I remember I worked there, like I volunteered to work over the summer there because my dad was a workaholic like I am, where they needed landscaping or something. My dad's like, I know I teach history here, but can we I'll do landscaping. Like he's like, just pay me what you'd pay them and we'll do the landscaping for the whole school. And then I went and did that for a summer with him just to make some extra cash. To buy comic books because I at the time was in like 7th or 8th grade, and it's like all cash went to comics. Anyhow, so I was a huge fan at the time of what people will know now as like the Sandman, but like nobody knew the Sandman comics back then that I knew. And I was the guy handing people Death, the High Cost of Living and being like, you need to read this. Neil Gaiman is a genius. And anyhow, so I'm kind of talking about comics and stuff to anyone I know. And I'm volunteering at this school over the summer just to like kind of make some comic cash. And I remember it's like laborious stuff where you're like lifting giant slabs of concrete and like removing roots underneath and stuff like that. And we're doing this. And the guy who taught science there kind of comes up and is talking to me, and I'm like the snotty preteen, so he's like, what are you into? And I'm like, oh, comics. And he's like, oh, tell me what kind. I'm really into comics. And I'm like, oh, you wouldn't know the comics I read kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we have this back and forth. It's my dad's coworker. And eventually I'm like, well, I really like, okay, so you probably haven't heard of it, but like Death, the High Cost of Living. And he's like, oh, Chris, he's like, pretty much like his cousin is Chris Bichello. So he's like, yeah, I'm related to Chris. I could like have you guys meet. And I'm like, what? Like, what the hell? And so I had this like brief encounter where I got to meet Chris Bichello. He told me about Cal State Long Beach, about the illustration program. He gave me a free copy, which I still have in my long box, of Generation X, like before it was released, signed. and it was like the shiny foil cover.
Oh yeah.
And I was so excited because like it had just been announced that he was on an X-Men title, which was a big deal because Death by House of Living was a big deal. And, but anyhow, it was just like this formative experience where from that point on, I had like Cal State Long Beach in the back of my head. I had illustration because he was like, he's like, don't go to any of the cartooning schools or anything like that. Just get an illustration degree. You'll never regret getting illustration. Yeah. And that was like in the back of my head for like from a young age to like when I finally went to college. And I don't even know if I remembered that was why I went to Cal State Long Beach, but it's like it was just implanted there as like a seed. And like I can't help but think like we've all had like similar experiences where there's like formative moments with an artist where they give you a tip or advice, or they take time to sit down with you and go, no, it's not this thing the gods do. It's like a thing that humans do. That I think is just like really encouraging, you know. But that kind of, to me, I think that's tying into like kind of what we're talking about, where it's like that kind of impact when you have it or you experience it. And similarly, when you get your first paycheck for art, it's such a good feeling. Like it's hard to remember that. Like after a while, when you've done art professionally, it feels like a job. Until you do a job again, and then you're like, never mind. No, it's way better than a job.
Right.
But my point is, like, I think those experiences make us want to give to people. You know, it's like it's almost like a social responsibility in a weird way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Not to remember, I mean, you know, it's such a cliche, this idea of paying forward, you know, but it's hard not to remember that some people sort of gave you a break. Some people gave you encouragement right when you needed it. Some people modeled how to do something and made it seem possible to you. And you realize how important it was, and that there's a value in if you could do that for somebody else. And I don't mean to embarrass him, but you know, Scott was very helpful to me. So, like, I remember seeing him at cons before I had my own tables. And then even when I was starting out and just doing prints, I didn't have a comic or, you know, or anything yet. I was just kind of just trying to figure out what D versus M was going to be. He was always very encouraging. And I was always just sort of impressed that this guy, who seemed like a megastar to me, would actually take the time to talk to me for 4 minutes, you know, like at a con. Like, I just couldn't believe, like, and then he would remember me year to year. He'd be like, oh yeah, Gary, I remember, you know, that meant a lot to me. And so now I can't help but think about that today and think about that when I'm at a con and try, like, it's like, maybe I can be that for somebody else, you know, maybe I can give someone like examples like Scott showed me, like it's possible, just like the stuff with like day job stuff. It showed me like it's possible. You can do this. All you need to do is just sort of make up your mind to do it and work. Like, as long as you're not lazy, as long as you're willing to put in the time, it's doable. You need to see it. You need to see that it can be done. And I don't know. There's no rational reason for it. Maybe there is deep down some reptilian brain, like you just got to get the tribe bigger, more and more people, one of us.
Yes.
I would like to bring more people into the fold. I want to give that experience to more people. I would like to make this accessible to more people. And like I said, if you don't want to pursue the arts, like, there's lots of good reasons not to, but I hope you're not doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it for good reasons, not for dumb reasons like, oh, I don't want to be a starving artist, or, oh, I'm not talented enough. You know, like some like weird cop out where it's like, that's not a reason not to do it. That's bad.
Yeah, and it's super, and giving that back. I mean, I'm sure as you know, as we get older and stuff, we're going to see more of this. You know, and I get feedback from people who've done stuff. You know, telling me, you know, how it helped them on YouTube and everything. But seeing that, like, and especially like Gary just brought this up, and I mean, I guess I hadn't really thought about it so much, but yeah, we did kind of communicate in the beginning back when, you know, kind of Gary, you know, I guess even before you had a table, but then when you had a table, you had the coloring book and everything. And then what you're producing now with Dinosaurs versus Marsbot, I could have never predicted that you would be one of the guys, and no slight on you and everything. Everything was good, but totally where you would kind of go and you never know that. So always,
You never
when you
know.
are talking to
Another one
people,
I could give a little shout out to, and maybe I don't know, maybe I owe him a royalty, but Daniel Davis of Steam.
yeah.
He's another guy. He was
too,
like
yeah.
you. It was you too, basically. You and Daniel, where I would go to the cons and talk.
Well, I learned a lot from Daniel too. Daniel helped me out a lot.
Daniel is sort of like the godfather of the
Yeah.
Arizona indie comic scene, to me. Like, I mean, he's kind of the guy. And like, he was another one where I was like, I can't believe this guy's even making time to talk to me. Like, this is awesome. And because he's super nice and super helpful. And I remember, I don't even know how I did it, but I asked him, I was like, would you mind just looking at my stuff? And just, and this was when it was prints and coloring book. And he was the first person, I think, to say to me, this is all cool. I love it. But you know what would get people really into this stuff is if there was a story attached. If you could get people into the story, then they're going to want to buy all these prints. They're going to want to buy because they're going to be into it and they're going to want every part of it. You're working in the other direction. You're like assuming, that. And at first I was like, and that was the first time I was like, I don't want to do a comic. That sounds like a lot of work. But he was probably the first one who was like, a story
look at you now.
would pull this all together. And now look at me now.
Yeah, and could you imagine the world being deprived of the kind of the and we can let Squatchy speak to this, but just the level of the comics you produce. I mean, it's just like it's amazing, and I just I just the more books you put out there, the more. I mean, I just think in some ways, I think you're kind of limiting your potential with the amount of, like, when you do a printing, you kind of do these limited runs. But I think more people need to read what you're doing because it's that good. So
that means a lot. That means a lot. Yeah. And again, especially given the figure you are in my comic history, right. Where it was sort of, you were the guy. You were one of, like, you were Local Boy Makes Good. And, and it was helpful. And like I said, to bring it back to the topic, if I can even do that for one or two people, if they're like, wow, Gary's doing it. Gary somehow figured it out. If that idiot Gary can do it, then certainly I can, like, pull something off. I think that's used. People need the model. They need, it's not enough just to say, like, you can do anything you put your mind to. I think you need to show them an example. Even if it's a relief example, even if it's like, well, I'm not going to do it exactly like that, but that gave me some ideas. And that's usually how I couch my process stuff, where it's like, look, this is how I do it. You go do it your own way. Like, this is my process, but it might be useful for you to see it, if nothing else, to decide, like, well, that's ridiculous. But now
and you hear about that a lot with just representation, where people, whatever their background is, like, I've seen people create stuff, but I never saw somebody like me create something. Yeah. And you would think that, as somebody who maybe not in the, whether, demographic, like, well, it's just, if anyone could do it. But no, I mean, sometimes people have to see people like them doing stuff to show that, you can do this. So, I mean, and you can be that person for other people. So
and I am proud to just show people that, yes, a white man can be a creator.
You're like, as underrepresented and just like underpaid as all of us white European males.
Believe and hope, guys. If you're a young white boy out there wondering if there's an opportunity for you in comics, yes, there is.
You are a fancy white. That's a shout. That's a callback to Gary's. If you guys want to know what that means, you need to watch Gary's live stream.
Yeah, I did at my last live stream. I brought up the problem of fancy whites. It's not getting talked about a lot, but I went through it.
It's a good one. Okay, so the thing that this also kind of brings up for me is the fact that, like, what you just described, that's also part of the motivation. Like, you and Scott had an experience. It's part of one of the things that keeps me kind of active in YouTube, doing live streams and, like, sharing what I can and trying to entertain people and keep them company when they're drawing. Part of it is the byproduct of like it's fun on Saturdays when you do your live streams, Gary, and I'm drawing and I'm able to hang out and listen, even if I can't hop on. It's like, it's still fun to like hear somebody else talking process that I like the comics of. It's also
And
awesome.
likewise, like I get very excited when I'm working on my page and I see that you went live, because it's like, great, now I have something to listen to. Like
and it has this byproduct of building out more and more of our own community of people who do. It's almost like the benefit of like, okay, like when you're first into like I went to a really small high school, so it's like when I'd find like indie rock music or like underground music, there was like hardly anyone that was into it. So then like we had this group of friends that were like based on like, some of them it's just like, oh, you listen to that band? Like that was it. It was like finding a unity and a bond in that. Or like, oh, you like Monty Python? Okay, like we're gonna hang out because we all like Monty Python. And this is the ultimate example of that kind of thing, where we're kind of putting it out there like, we make this art stuff, it can be done, we make comics, we want to make, you know, and suddenly the community of people making the kind of comics that we want to see made, like, start building around us, which is and building out from not just us but like other people, and like it kind of spreads this like network of people. I don't know, I think that's a real benefit, like, to me. Like Scott was saying, you know, it'd be weird if we had a world where Gary Hodges wasn't making comics, but Scott was like a little piece in that process. The other thing that it brink to mind is the fact that, well, I guess there's
what was the Artcasters, by the way? I remember I was starstruck the first time I guested on Artcasters. I felt like a comedian being invited to sit with Johnny. Like, this was, you know, on the time, like, this was crazy. Like I remember Dan Ekus doing a similar thing when Dan Ekus was on. He's like, I can't believe I'm talking to Scott Circland, and I can't believe I'm on the. It was kind of like that because I had been watching you guys while I was chipping away drawing D versus M75, and you know, some people might think like, oh, this is a very modest goal, but I was thinking like, maybe if I can pull this off, I will be a guest on Artcasters someday. Like there was a bit of that. So
that's awesome. I think there's also there's the two product that I'm curious to hear like your guys' thoughts on, like the kind of building out of community from it. And then the second part, which is there also a part of this that has to do with the fact that we're all doing cartooning and animation, and so technically we might also just be like drug pushers, where we're like we've gotten addicted to this thing and we're like, hey kid, I got some stuff in my coat, like in the comics, they're amazing. So I'm kind of curious, like, if you guys think there's some of that to it too.
I will admit, like, I have lots of friends. I like lots of people. Not all of them are creatives, but I have to admit I have a bias towards creatives in a big way. Like, not just artists, like musicians, photographers, like some kind of thing. Like I definitely am just more excited and interested in that than, you know, anything else. So I think some of it is like I alluded before, some of it is like one of us. Like, if you think you have a book in you, if you think you have a comic in you, if you think you have a song in you or something, like, I want to hear it. I want to read it. Yes. Like, join up, like, get in the clubhouse. Like, let's talk about process. Let's talk about your ideas. Like, I just find that way more interesting. But
oh, Squatch is at it again. Oh,
this guy.
He's just
this
like
is,
relentless.
This is another good bit of information
This
for
is
young
what happens.
aspiring artists. Like, be
Be
careful,
careful what you wish for, because you'll get
be
another
careful
one
what
fan.
you wish for. You could put in the work, you could make the thing, you could get some readers, and then you end up with a weird Bigfoot creature that wandered out of the woods and read your book and ruins your life for the, just haranguing.
Followed by a Sasquatch for eternity.
Yes.
I love it. Have you ever tried the turning it around thing where you're like, what about you, Squatch? What are you working on?
I showed up on Foo's channel just a few days ago. And I was like,
oh, nice.
Shouldn't it be working? And he lost his mind. He totally lost his mind. Like, I can't believe this guy is saying this. Like, I mean, he just completely melted down. I loved it. It was delicious. I was just,
Gary,
I have to
Gary,
go
where
check
can
out
we
that
find
episode. Yeah,
I
wanna
don't
see
know.
that.
Go to Comic Foo's channel. I'll find a link. I'll drop it in the Artcast.
Was it a
Love it.
comic book?
Yeah,
What's the
yeah.
show called? Where they do the unboxing
I forgot what the like.
or the
It was Foo's channel. I don't know if they were doing like mystery boxes or what they were
right?
doing.
Yeah, the mystery
They
box.
were
Yeah,
streaming
I did one of those. It was super fun.
I saw him not drawing, even though I know he's got two things he's supposed to be working on. He's supposed to be working on his book, where I think Josh and I were left hanging. We were in a cliffhanger. We want to know what's next.
That's true.
And
I think we want to know what's next.
Yeah,
I don't know if we want to know
that he's told me about that he's working on.
Yeah,
could
if
have
I
been
can't see
drawing.
it, if we
Could have
can't
been
see it,
drawing.
how do we know what's happening if we can't see it?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't sense he's very committed to the work.
Yeah.
Frankly,
I love
what do you
it.
think about that, Squad?
Oh man, let's see. We probably should start wrapping it up because I know Gary's got some plans after this. So, is there any before we start going back and doing our little promotion thing? Is there any cap we want to put on any of these this topic or anything like that? Any last words that anyone wants to add?
Yeah, I'll add something real quick. I think one of the things that okay, so I bumped into somebody at a con one time, and I love their art, and I was looking forward to following them on social media. And they said, because it was kind of like a duo, oh, we don't really do anything online because we're too busy making comics. And I was like, oh, okay. Can I buy one of your comics? And they're like, oh, we haven't finished it yet. And it was like, one, I was kind of curious what they were doing at the show, but two, there's a range of like, performative art where you you're trying to draw something with your toes while you're stabbing yourself in the eye, or whatever. And then there's like hermit level where you just never do anything. But I do actually think there's a lot of value in sharing your work. And one of the things that I've noticed is I will see things through a different lens when I'm about to post it. And so oftentimes my work will get better, that last minute tweak or that last minute thing, or the feedback that I get off of it. People just don't understand what I was trying to do. And if I just never shared that stuff and I never talked through that stuff and I never engaged with people online, I don't think I'd be at the level that I'm at. I think it's a huge way to improve is to be able to like share things publicly. And so if you're not sharing things, I would recommend it. And then the other thing is, I think along the lines of like imposter syndrome, which I have in spades, and most creatives do, is if you're waiting to be like the best before you post, there's a thing that I saw at one point in time that I thought was pretty interesting, and it was not that like I will never be in a place where I could teach Todd McFarlane something, right? I could learn a lot from him, right? There's a lot of people that I could learn a lot from, but they couldn't learn anything from me because they're way ahead of me. But
I think you could teach him some manners. I'm just kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
Social grace. Yeah.
But anyway, but there are people coming behind me as I learn that could benefit from that. And so it's not that that because I'm not at the top of the industry that I shouldn't say anything. I actually think that once you get to like middle of the road, there are people that were where you were a couple years ago that would benefit from knowing what you know now.
Yep.
And so and that's like a perpetual cycle where as you move on, you can take people with you, and as they move on, they can take people with them, and as those guys move on, they can take people with them. And so I think there's a lot of benefit in sharing what you know in that aspect of the community, but also being able to articulate things that you've learned moves it into a different cognitive area in your brain.
Yeah.
And so there's a difference between knowing how to do something. Well, it's understanding, which is totally useless, right? Understanding is a dangerous place to be because you think you know what you're talking about. It's like the peak of the Dunning-Kruger. Then after that, there's knowledge, and then there's the application of that knowledge, and then there's the articulation of that application. And so if you can be able to say, you know, this is how this works and this is why this works, you actually level up even more so than you would have if you just held that to yourself. And so
Yeah.
in explaining it, I think there's a lot of benefit.
The teachers in the group know this better than anybody, but I've done a little bit of training over my career, and nothing will get you better at something than having to work through like how to explain it to somebody. You know,
Right.
that you also will benefit and like having to articulate your process and make it logical. Like there's a lot of and you think about it just with your day-to-day life. There's probably something you do every day that you are totally like make coffee or something that if you actually had to write for a moron, like this is how you do this, like it would slow you down and you'd realize like, whoa, like this is actually harder than I thought it was to try and like write this out. And it'll help you understand it better.
So I think that's great. Let's kind of go around the room and start closing stuff out. I'll start with Corey. We'll go clockwise from there.
You can find my stuff at coreykerr.com, and if you go there, you'll see illustrations, both traditional and digital, and animation. And if you want to watch any of those, that's all on there. But if you'd like to avoid the algorithm and make sure that you get to decide what you see and not some deep learning machine AI gets to decide what you see, then sign up for my newsletter, which is at coreykerr.com/email. And you will you'll be ensured that you will not miss anything that I make. And no more than once a week, sometimes less than that. And so it's not a huge spammy thing. And unsubscribe anytime. It's all free.
Awesome. All right, Josh, what about you?
Awesome. So I will say a few things. So first off, I'll say I said this on my live stream when Scott launched his Kickstarter, and I'll reiterate it. I think out of everybody in our community, Scott is like a bridge builder, and he has connected at minimum all three of us with him on this show. He's connected like a ton of people in the chats and stuff. Like he is a fulcrum of our community. And so I really do think if you guys haven't, and this is not, I mean, Scott can pay me later, but my point is, without being induced to say this or anything like that, just as a friend of Scott and somebody who's watched his career blossom and like watched his like comic maker starter kit, that like when he invested in that, like it was something he believed people would want and need, and he did it at a heavy risk, and like it didn't pay off immediately. And he did that for the community. He does stuff like that all the time. He's always supporting other people's Kickstarters. So I will actually pull the guilt card and say, feel guilty if you haven't supported his Kickstarter. Like you guys should be supporting Scott's work. And it's reasonable prices. And also I will say, just as a fan of Scott's stuff, it's a really great time. If you haven't bought Young and the Dead, this is how I got into Young and the Dead. I got in a little late, and it was a couple Kickstarters back where I bought one of the big bundles where you get the whole set. So I'd encourage you guys to do that. And I'd also just point out there's a beautiful cover by Gary Hodges. There is my variant cover. There's Corey, can you put your variant cover up too for people to see on your screen? I don't know if that's possible.
Maybe.
But Corey will pull up his variant cover. There it is. Okay, that beautiful variant cover up there. So Scott's covers are awesome too. If you are smart, you'll do what I did, and like I have issues 1 through 4, so I'm buying the variants, and I'm also gonna tack on the $5 extra, which you can do on the Kickstarter. You can tack on extras. So I got the extra so I could have Scott's original cover too. Okay, and then that was my big long huckster for Scott, but I also will say it's sincere, and I also will say if you like indie comics, buy this slice of life autobiographical comic that talks openly about depression, mental illness, that kind of thing. That you can pick up on Amazon, and at sometimes a reduced rate, but you really got to keep an eye on it. If you see a good price on it, you should snap it up because it's back to full price, baby. So who knows? And then I'm going to also, while you guys are processing, did he just say baby? Yeah, that's right. I called you that. That's terrible. I will never use that again. Okay, so there's Jacob's Apartment, which is my graphic novel that talks about the kinds of questions that can challenge even the strongest of faith. It's a doomed romance slice of life comic that that's like if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind and Ghost World and you put it in a blender. If you like the flavor of that, you would be into this book. And you can get this at your local library or bookstore. And I will tell you guys, like, you all live near a library. This is carried by Diamond Distribution. They can order it. Go to your local library and say, hey, my buddy has a book you guys should carry. And Jacob's Apartment. So yeah, that's it for my stuff. And now I will pass it on.
All right, Gary, you're up.
All right. So yeah, if you want to chase down the stuff I'm doing, maybe start with my YouTube. I have a bunch of videos. I probably have like 40 videos on there. The last
links in the description.
Recent, like dozen plus are live streams just talking about random things, Star Wars, fancy whites, whatever, like just random things. But if you go deeper than that, it's every stage of making comics. It's going to Comic-Con, it's writing a script, it's figuring out thumbnails, it's all that stuff. You can go into it and just see my process for making B vs. M comics, which are still on sale. I still have a few copies left in my Etsy shop. You can find it. There's a link through my YouTube or through my Instagram, which is the handle right here, Dinosaurs vs. Marspots. So.
And yeah, guys, when Gary says there's still copies available, you do actually, if you want to get his books, you need to jump on that because they literally will sell out.
I let them sell out, and once this latest batch sells out, that's I don't want to say this 100%. Some of those, that might be it, because I'm intending to work toward a trade where I'm going to compile the first 3 into a book. And when that happens, I'm never going to print those singles ever again. So at some point, I'm like just calling it and like, okay, I'm not reprinting these singles anymore. Just so you know, if you're into singles, I would say do it now. But.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so I guess I'll close out the show. Yeah, just kind of Josh had said, I've got a Kickstarter going up right now. So as far as being online with the topic, as far as giving and what you get out of giving, a lot, when you put out a lot of stuff there, every once in a while you can ask for something. So if I've ever got any value from all the stuff that I put out there and you have the ability to do so, definitely please check out my Kickstarter. And it's not like, I mean, you're going to be getting something in return anyway, because you're going to be getting the books and all the stuff that I've been working on. So definitely check out the Kickstarter. I'm sure there is a tier for you that lines up with kind of what you're looking for. So definitely check that out. And again, that's just at this tickering thing down below, Young and the Dead.
Oh, wait,
just go to youngandthedead.com. Yeah.
Scott, just out of curiosity, so can we get you to commit to the prison tier thing if you hit the first tier?
If I hit the stretch goal, or
yeah, the first tier of stretch goal. Do you think we could do another prison tier thing, or is that too much?
Well, how long do I have to have it for? I'm trying to
just one stream.
Just one stream. Sure, yeah, definitely.
All right,
yeah.
You guys heard that, so let's make this happen. Like, we actually made this happen a couple years back. So if we hit that first stretch goal, not only will you get a cool reward, but we'll also have Scott with like a little prison tear drawn on the side of his face during an Artcasters stream. Come on, you guys.
Why would you agree to this, Scott?
We did it before, but before I kept it until the campaign was over. I'm not sure if I wanted to.
Oh no.
No. We'll make that a, like, if we hit further than the stretch goal. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, I think I may have even got 2 prison tiers. I might have got 1 on each.
I think it did extend it too.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like the Loki of Scott's stream.
Actually, anything that helps, anything that's going to get people
Hell
to
yeah.
back their project. So, all right. Besides the Kickstarter, the only other thing I wanted to mention was this show that we do, the Artcasters. We do this show every single week, and it rotates between Josh's channel and mine, and sometimes Corey's. And we've got a different guest on, and sometimes it's even on a different day. You never know. I may, in trying to schedule some of these other live streams that I want to make appearances, we may have to switch the day of Artcasters. We'll see. But if you want to know exactly, who the guest is going to be, whose channel is going to be on, when we're going to go live, what day, all that kind of stuff, what the topic is, join our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything. There's a link in the description. All that is because YouTube doesn't always notify people when we go live. So if you click on that, you join our mailing list. We don't spam you. Just about 30 minutes or so before we go live, we'll send out a newsletter with the link, and you can click on that, and you will be able to join us here on the Artcaster. So definitely check that out. I want to thank Gary for kind of showing up last minute, and especially because he's got some sounds like some plans tonight. So thanks for fitting us into your schedule, and we will see. Oh, and thank you everyone in the chat. We had a very lively chat today. A lot of great comments and stuff, and yeah, I think this is a really great show. So definitely, if you like this kind of show, stick around, and we keep doing more of these. We have no plans on stopping. So we'll be here. Check out that newsletter, and you'll know exactly when we go live. And we'll see you guys next week. And that is all.
Bye.